now tuned in to the St. Clair Speak Show. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, good. This is good behind the scenes content. What's going on, guys? It's Yahavy St Clair Speaks. You are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speak Show. You are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speak Show. What's going on, guys? I'm your host, Yahavy St Clair, guys. Welcome back to the St. Clair Speak Show podcast. Now, guys, today's guest is a very special guest. I am sitting with Machuca. Now, guys, the real inspiration behind this is, if you guys been following me, you know I breathe sales. So to talk sales in depth, the science and the art of sales and what's got Alex to this point and almost selling his business to Gary Vaynerchuck, guys, this episode of the St. Clair Speak Show podcast is one you should tune in for. It's that time. Alex, again, I want to welcome you on the St. Clair Speak Show podcast. It is a pleasure to have you. For those, of course, now tuning in, new listeners, those who are not familiar with what you do, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your brand and your business.
Yeah. So my name is Alex Machuca. I'm based in Scottsdale, Arizona. I own a digital marketing company called Lyncrest Media. We specialize in helping mortgage brokers double their volume per month.
So helping mortgage brokers in this time in the pandemic. One of the things I want to dive into this right away. I was in real estate for a couple months. And with the pandemic coming, are you seeing, as far as like a culture shift in your business? Are you guys, like going in the direction of like, hey, like, oh, wow, like some companies are having a little bit more upside because of the pandemic?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely the case, right? A lot of there's a refinance boom that's going on right now, to where mortgage brokers are scrambling to find refinance leads because there's a lot of, I guess, untapped fruit out there that they can capitalize on monetarily. So when we're running leads, we're running refinance leads and we're running home buyer leads, and those in together really just create a perfect formula for that person to scale their business accordingly. Now, we are much different than any lead generation company out there right now. When lead generation companies first started, and it's still happening today, they would just sell a name and a phone number, give it to the broker, and tell that broker, good luck, right? What we do is much different. We actually take it a step further. So we actually pursue the lead for the broker, right? And this is kind of where sales ability comes into play. I've been hired to write sales pitches for various companies, different sales systems, put into place systems and processes that help people get closer to the sale. So, when I first started this mortgage lead company, and we always want to niche down, right? We want to be very, very good at one thing. So when I was deciding to start this digital marketing company, we could help a whole range of people based on the digital marketing skills that I have. But it was important to just niche down to one specific person so that we could scale really, really fast. So, if we're talking about mortgage brokers and helping them succeed, a huge part of their job is sales, right? So the problem is when you give a mortgage broker a lead, he's got a million other tasks that he has to do, right? His job, the hardest part of his job is cold calling. So how do we eliminate that? How do we make his job easier, right? Because your most valuable asset is your time, and then it's your money, right? Not the other way around. So what we did was, instead of just doing what most lead gen companies do and just selling them a name and a phone number and telling them good luck, we actually have an outsourced call center that will call the leads for them. They will dial on their lead list every day, calling every single leads that come in for the mortgage broker. So as a result, the mortgage broker is only speaking to people who actually want to speak to him, and who are a set appointment. So the dynamic of the phone call is much different from when they just had to phone call a number and say, hey, this is Ted. The reason I'm calling is A, B, C, D, right? Then it's a sales call. But when we're calling up and setting an appointment in advance, we're eliminating all of that extra work, all of those failed opportunities that he's probably gone through dialing hundreds of numbers, and just cutting those into the important conversations that he needs to have with serious buyers, people who are willing to have a serious conversation about buying or refinancing a home.
I was recording some webinar content today, right? And I'm talking about lead generating. One of the struggles and this is a great talking point, because one of the struggles that I faced this year, well, I got into real estate, and obviously there's a lot of information. So I'm reaching out to these homeowners regarding their properties, and I'm reaching out to hundreds of pre-foreclosure properties, and technology has like skyrocketed around me, right? There's ringless voicemail, there's automated emails that you could do, so many different outreach. And I was looking at it from the point of, okay, one call, two, and I wasn't getting anywhere. So when you say that the time and the money and lead generating, how does one lead generate the right way? When is enough saying like, okay, this is not working for me as far as lead genning? How can I, take this business and apply it and really elevate my lead generation?
So, anybody could generate leads, right? Anybody could generate leads on Facebook. We generate our leads on Facebook. I think what people don't realize is generating the lead is the easiest part of it, right? So when people ask me all the time, what makes a quality lead? And what makes a quality lead is eliminating every single avenue that makes it a bad lead. So for example, there are typically 4 reasons why mortgage brokers have had a bad experience with lead gen. 1, bad numbers. The leads don't have valid numbers and they're wasting their time dialing dead leads. 2, bad credit. The leads aren't eligible for the programs that mortgage broker's company has. 3 is exclusivity. If they buy leads from Zillow and LendingTree will sell those same leads to 5 other people, and then you have to compete for the business. And then the commitment level of those leads, meaning you call the lead and they don't remember filling out any form, they don't remember opting into anything that would give you a reason to call them. So their attitude is, why are you calling me, right? So how do you make a good lead? You make a good lead by eliminating every single avenue that can possibly make it a bad lead, right? So when we talk about exclusivity, when we're generating these leads, we're doing it specifically for that mortgage broker. We're not sharing his leads with 5 other brokers. That lead is his. When we talk about commitment level, we drive our leads to a 12-page comprehensive survey where we extract information from them that would be pertinent to the broker, their credit score, their annual household income, all that good stuff, right? The reason we do that is we make them jump through hurdles to get to the broker because they're always going to remember, right? They're always going to remember taking a 12-page survey as opposed to just filling out their name and phone number in some stupid ad that they saw over the weekend, right? So, we really try and get them to go through a process and jump through hurdles so that when the broker does speak to them, they know exactly why the broker is calling, which makes the call easier for the broker. I think what's more important so than generating the lead as well is, listen, people, it's crazy to me because people don't follow this general rule of thumb. And I know everybody's heard this before. The sale is in the follow-up, right? So when you have a lead, it's important to follow up with a lead. And what I found is a lot of my mortgage brokers at the beginning of my tenure were not following up with the leads. They were lazy. They were busy, right? So what we said is, hey, we'll just do that for you. We'll take that off your hands. We'll follow up with every single lead. So having a good automated follow-up system, one of the ones that I highly recommend just for your viewers, especially ones who are aspiring to be a digital marketer in any sense, I would look into Go High Level. Go High Level is a software that reaches out to people via email, voicemail, text message, and it's a pretty robust system that will completely change the game for digital marketers, and that's something that we're leveraging in our company.
That's one thing I've learned, and someone shared the same exact quote: the money is in the follow-up, right? In real estate, and not even just in real estate, in all sales, right? The money's in the follow-up. I was a personal trainer for 7 years, so if I gave someone a free assessment, I would have to follow up with them within 2 days to figure out if they really like the session, if they want to continue training with me. If you don't take that extra step, you never know if they want to go that extra mile. So, again, definitely, the money is in the follow-up. And, you're going to experience this too when, you just make that one initiative to make a sale and you don't follow up. Then you're going to be stuck with the regret. Like, damn, did I do enough? And that's heavy. That's heavy. So, we're talking technology. You just brought up higher level. And you're talking about automation, lead generating, and how this creates business. For me, and I'm going to share this with you, I'm sure you experienced this, but technology, of course, in some ways has been a blessing and a curse. But you've also found ways to fill in your gaps as far as just business model needs through technology. So, what are you seeing as far as just the supply and demand in what you do in your service?
I mean, right now there's really high demand for it. We scale to 30K per month in about 1 month. So there's a lot of it. I think right now my company is at the forefront of automation when it comes to lead generation. Right now, a lot of lead generation companies are just outdated. They just sell leads and tell the broker good luck. And nowadays that's not enough. So I think we are kind of setting the standard or raising the standard for lead generation companies everywhere. And I think a lot of them are going to be following suit here very shortly.
I want to talk to you. I want to dive more into, like the art of sales. I was reading up a little bit more about, you come from New Jersey. So I want to know, like, what sparked sales for you? With me, it started from candy and comedy tickets. But what got you to this point?
When I was a kid, my first job was a call center job, and I would call for first responders and convince people to donate money, right? So I wasn't even selling anything. I was just getting them to donate money. So I started out, I guess, in a pretty tough, tough thing to do. It's hard to kind of get, hey, I'm not going to give you any real benefit, but like if you want to donate to first responders, like here it is. And I was pretty good at that. Every single job that I've had ever since I was 16 years old was a sales job. I think what helped me after that was I did door-to-door sales. So after door-to-door sales on the phone became very, very easy for me, right? Because door-to-door sales are a little bit harder than sales on the phone, right? So sales on the phone was just like, oh, this is a breeze, I worked for a company called GoDaddy. Obviously, everybody knows that company. I was number 7 in the world in sales globally for that company. And I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. My father owned his own company. So I always, originally thought I was going to just take over his company. But he actually, when the recession hit back after September 11th, his company went under. We lost our house. We ended up living in a family friend's basement for a year. And, I grew up very, very spoiled. I had, 2 limos when I was a kid. My dad owned a limo company as well. He owned a few companies, but I was very, very spoiled all the way up to the age of 16. So when that was taken away from me and we went from living in this huge house to living in my friend's basement and me not being able to get, everything that I was used to. And I go from, just having a housekeeper to living in a basement eating Elio's pizza every day because we couldn't afford, to have, these big meals that we used to have. It was a really, really painful time in my life. And it was painful because I was selfish. You're a 16-year-old kid. What do you care about? Girls, being able to go to the mall, all that stuff. And that's really all I cared about. So, when we got all of that taken away from me as a spoiled kid, it really, really pained me. And I held on to it for a long time. I held on to it till I was about 24 years old. And I was just mad at the world, kind of bitter, pissed off. Everything is everybody else's fault. Until one day my dad, even though he had, little money, he was helping me pay my rent. And one day he just goes, hey, get your shit together, bud. I'm done. And he never paid it again. And I went out and got my first job. And, from there, a lot of shit happened, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Tell us a little bit more, about, the transition from, obviously coming up as, a solo entrepreneur. Now, you again, reading this article, you was almost at a point where you're selling your company to Gary Vaynerchuck. Can you tell us what got you to that point? How do you go from, grown up spoiled to the point of 16? You had 2 limos. Now you're here. How do you go from boom to zoom? How did that happen?
Well, just hunger, man. I always was like, man, I never want to be in that position again. And my whole goal, in life is like, hey, I want to get to a position where I can help my family out. And I set out to do that. And I went out and I got a few jobs. I started working for this guy named Tim Fargo, and I learned a ton. He always used to tell me, when you work for me, it's like getting your Harvard MBA. He went to Harvard. So he was a big Harvard guy, and learned a lot there. Left that company. Him and I kind of like had a disagreement. We parted ways. Started working for this guy named Richard Brock. Richard Brock had the #1 performing stock back in 2004. He's a super successful entrepreneur, old man. So I started working for him. So the one thing that I made to do throughout my journey is work for people who I wanted to be like, right? Work for people who I wanted to be like. So my first ever entrepreneurial startup was my recruiting business. I started a staffing company. Okay. We did okay. We did about 80,000 in the first year. After basically what happened was I went to Australia. I came back from Australia, and my friend had this pop-up exhibit. Now, are you familiar with the Museum of Ice Cream? Right. So he did something like that, but it was in Scottsdale, and it was a huge success. They did like $350,000-$400,000, right? So they had a new concept, and it was called Tacotopia, and they were looking for investors for that. So they came to me and asked me if I wanted to invest, and I said, hey, I'm not going to give you $250,000 for 25% equity, which was their deal. And they said, well, I know you have a big network. If you find somebody who is willing to give us $250,000, we'll give them 25% equity, and we'll give you 10% equity. So I was like, oh, that sounds like a pretty sweet deal. I'll see, what I can do. So I spoke to one of my friends who I knew had a good amount of money, and he was originally going to invest, and then he got cold feet. So I was so excited about this new opportunity, and I got it kind of torn away from me because he didn't invest. So I'm like, shit, but I really, really believe in this. I want equity in this company. I didn't give up on it. And what I did was I realized that, the Museum of Ice Cream is all for Instagram, right? So, if that's all for Instagram, then that makes it a great marketing opportunity for brands, right? Because brands market at festivals, but this is a brick and mortar, and this is not a 3-day thing. It's a permanent thing, right? It's every, I think it's about 3 months long until they move to the other state. So what I noticed is, listen, all of these millennials are walking into these buildings and taking pictures. How cool would it be to put your brand in these pictures? You'll be putting a viral explosion on Instagram, right? Because everybody is coming here with the sole purpose of taking pictures. That means everybody who walks through our doors is now a brand ambassador for you and your company, right? So I noticed that it was a great and unique marketing opportunity. And I know companies are advertising at festivals, and I thought, well, this is way better than a festival because we have a captive audience. They can't escape. They're in our building for an hour, and it's not a 3-day thing. It goes on for 3 months, and it has a social media component. So it was all the right factors and a great branding opportunity. So right after I was devastated that my friend wouldn't invest, I said, let me just try a couple of things and see what happens. So I cold called Pepsi, and I cold called Cholula hot sauce because I thought they were great fit for what we do. It was called Tacotopia. So it was a pop-up museum dedicated to taco food, right? Had a bunch of great, we had a mechanical taco, for example, that you could like ride, right? So it's kind of like an entertainment thing. And I cold called both of them. And in 3 calls each, both of them, I got them to collectively give me $250,000 in sponsorship money for them to sponsor the event, which then financed the opportunity. And I was able to keep the 25% equity for myself as opposed to the 10% equity that I was originally promised.
You slide. Oh man, I like that. I'm like I just like the second you said that, you seen the grin on my face. I'm like, wow. So all right, let's talk about, let's rewind for a second. I need to dissect this. I'm looking at this from the salesman perspective. Sure. I want to talk about cold calls. How did you get to the point? Where do you get the confidence to cold call Pepsi and make offers like this over the phone?
Well, the first thing that I did was, listen, you always talk to the gatekeeper first, right? And you know how the gatekeepers are. They want to protect They're executives. They're not just going to let anybody get on the phone. So what I did was I called, and I'm talking about 3 calls from when I talked to the director, right? So there was more when I called the gatekeeper, obviously, because she wouldn't let me talk to the director. So what I said to her finally, I said, hey, look, I know how it works, but I guarantee you that if you bring this to your head of marketing, she will thank you. You will look good when you bring this to her. And if you don't, I'm just going to call tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So let's cut through the bullshit. You don't want to deal with me for another month. I don't want to deal with you for another month. Just get me to her. And she did. So, actually, when she got to her, I was in Australia. So I had to take the call, and, there's different time zones. So I had to take the call at around 3 a.m. in Australia in order to, that was my first initial call with their head of marketing. But it was great. I think, when you go in there and you're speaking to these companies, as long as you feel like you belong and you kind of portray that, things are going to just be assumed about you. You don't even have to say it, right? What was that? I couldn't hear you that first time.
God damn, that was inspiring, man. I'm like, God damn, that's inspiring. Because I'm feeling that because, I've been doing sales for God knows, I don't know, like how long, almost half my life. So, like breaking down that cold call and like you said, like feeling like you belong, like that's spot on, man.
Sure. Yeah. And that pays off in more ways than one. Like, the whole thing with Gary, I ended up raising, after I raised that $250,000, I ended up raising another $400,000 from other people, investors, companies. So I raised about over $600,000 for that company. And basically what happened is we got a strategic partner in a local marketing company here in Phoenix that was going to take over doing our ads. And, the company, the ads weren't hitting right. Like they just weren't working. And, I wanted to say in those ads, and my partners were just kind of like, hey, stick to sales. Your job is to raise the money. Don't worry about the digital marketing. Come to know now, my company's at $30,000 per month doing digital marketing. Like, I know much more than them, but, I was new in the company, so I respected them and, let them run it the way that they wanted it to be run. I would have done things much differently, and I'm sure, the results would have been different, but I still did my job. So, when one marketing company wasn't performing, I called Ryan Harwood. So Ryan Harwood is the CEO of Gallery Media Group, and he's best friends with Gary V. So the way it works is there's VaynerX, the parent company, and then under it is Gallery Media, which is the agency side, and Vayner Media. Gallery Media, which is the media side, and Vayner Media, which is the agency side. So when I spoke to Ryan, I said, hey, listen, like this is what's happening in my company. I think it's a great opportunity for you guys. And Ryan goes, yeah, Gary was talking about getting into the experiential space, which is what we're in, the experiential space, experiential marketing, right? We want to make an experience for people. So, he was like, why don't we run a test and we'll run ads for you to see if it works. And if it works, then obviously we can talk about an equity deal. So I was super excited because I'm the type of guy, I've been watching Gary V videos forever. Although, the pandemic hit and it didn't work out, the fact that I called Ryan, now Ryan knows who I am, right? So since then, I've actually hooked Ryan up with a couple people that I thought could be mutually beneficial relationships. And that's something that I do all the time. I network and I learn how to monetize my network, which I think is really important. What a lot of people don't understand is they don't know how to outsource value. So for example, if I have somebody who needs marketing services and I don't know how to do those marketing services, that does not mean that I cannot help that person. What I do and what I've made a career off of is I will go find that person, right? So if person A needs marketing services, I'll go find somebody who does that marketing. Person A will pay me for finding that person. and person B will find me for finding him business. So I'm double dipping and monetizing that way as well.
I love that perspective, Alex. I freaking love that. Like you're a freaking hustler, man. I admire that. Right. But you see opportunity, right? So it's the same thing as far as just digital marketing. I'm learning with this podcast in itself, right? It's digital marketing. It's another hack marketing strategy. The amount of guests that I've had recently, right? I interviewed Michael Zuber, real estate investor. He has $1 million portfolio. His book, One Rental at a Time. We was talking about his book and we were talking about real estate investing. Then I was talking to other authors. Now I'm talking to you. And this is something I definitely want to just jump back to. You just talked about network marketing, right? And how underpriced, the network marketing is. Can you shed a little bit more light on that?
Yeah. So there's two different types of network marketing, right? There's the network marketing, like the multi-level marketing, like the Alex Mortons. You know who that is? I went to college with Alex Morton. Yeah. So there's the network marketing that way. And then, the kind of network marketing that you and I are talking about. When we talk about monetizing networks, and I think it's really important to understand that you do not need to have the skill set to help that person. You can simply outsource the value, right? So you can outsource somebody. You could outsource value. Like I can bring value to somebody by just finding it, right? So, for example, do you know who Josh Snow is?
No.
So Josh Snow, I'm sure you've seen his ad. So. Josh Snow is the owner of Snow Teeth Whitening. They have a teeth whitening service. You put like a mouth guard in your mouth and like it lights up. Chuck Liddell advertised it, Floyd Mayweather, Rob Gronkowski. So all these guys, right? So Josh, he's worth $100 million, okay? He lives in my town, but I never met him. So I hit him up on Instagram once because I was recently in Las Vegas with Conor McGregor's manager, Audi Attar. Audi Attar is one of the most prolific sports agents in the world. He represents Manny Pacquiao, Conor McGregor. A lot of people credit the rise of Conor McGregor to Audi. So I was in Las Vegas with Audi just by chance, a couple mutual friends, and we got along great. He asked me for my phone number, and we kept in touch after that. So I see Josh Snow. This guy's worth $100 million. He's also in Scottsdale, which is close to me, and we have mutual friends. So what I realized is Josh is leveraging a ton of athletes for his brand. And I know he's paying these athletes. And I know that he's probably using a talent agency to pay these athletes. So he's getting a cut, right? He's getting or their talent agencies are getting a cut every time he wants to advertise. So I hit him up and I said, hey, listen, I see that you are advertising for a bunch of different athletes. I know Audi Attar. He is the CEO of Paradigm Sports Management Company. He has a whole portfolio of athletes. Why don't we cut out the middleman? This way, you're not using a talent agency. You can go straight to the source and get your advertising costs at price. So for Josh, he's saving money on advertising because he doesn't have to go through a talent agency anymore. He's going right to the source. And then for Audi, it's another avenue for him to feed his athletes and put dinner on the table for them, right? It's another way to make them money. So, being able to recognize opportunities, and you're just putting people together, right? This guy has a service. This guy has a service. Those services complement each other well. Let's put you guys together. You guys can break me off a piece of whatever you think is fair. And, and then at that point, you're just building relationships. I recently hooked Josh Snow up with Ryan Harwood as well. So you can recycle those relationships as well, right? And I'm sure I'll put Audi in touch with Ryan.
Yo, just don't forget to throw Yahavy St Clair in the mix, man. Throw me in there,
yeah.
Right? So it's like that's cool because this is exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about this level of marketing, right? So it's all about, obviously, you make these connections, you get these referrals. Now you have multiple different business affiliates all over the countries, all over the states, and it's good because you're filling in the blanks.
And I could put them in my network, right?
Yep.
I could put them in my network. Like after this call, right? I would hope that you put me in your network.
Absolutely.
Meaning what I do, and this is something called, you know who Grant Cardone is, right? So, So Grant Cardone, the guy who did Grant Cardone's marketing, he brought him from $40,000 a month to $1.4 million a month. His name is Jeremy Haynes. He's a mentor of mine, right? He talks about something called authority hijacking. Now, if you look at any of my press, who's mentioned in there? Audi Attar, Josh Snow, Ryan Harwood, Fam Mirza, Casey Adams. Dr. George Pratt. The reason I put those people in my press is to demonstrate authority and credibility, because obviously if these people are willing to do business or network with me, then obviously that gives me a certain amount of credibility that I could then leverage to get new business.
It's the same thing like me giving you this interview, right? Like us doing this interview. This gives me tons of leverage, right? So can you imagine what that does for me? But from the listeners listening to this right now, what Alex is pretty much saying is this: find opportunity in opportunity.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And always say yes, right? So your life, right? When I look at your life, it's almost like a timeline, right? And there's opportunity that runs to the side of you, and then there's opportunity, and then there's your ability to fulfill that opportunity or to take advantage of that opportunity, right? The key to making sure that you are getting the most out of your life and out of success is to say yes to every opportunity and then figure it out later, right? Even if I can't do something and somebody asks me to do it, I'll always say yes if I look at it as an opportunity, because I simply know that I can just go find out how to do it and figure it out, or I can outsource it to somebody else.
It's funny you say that, because I've used that analogy and it's the littlest things where I said yes to something so I could learn something much larger than what I said yes to.
Mm-hmm.
That's deep.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of my friends, they'll like be like, oh, dude, like, listen, you ask any one of my friends, if we are in a room and there's Jeff Bezos or, George Clooney, whoever it is, most people are intimidated to go up to them, introduce themselves, figure out a way to do business. The difference between myself and all of my friends who work a 9-to-5 is that I'm willing to do that. If you are in a room with me and I see you in that room and I look at you as an opportunity, I 100% am going to go up to you. I'm going to introduce myself, and I'm going to not in a annoying way, right? But I will never let an opportunity slip me by. I don't care who it is. I will go up to them and say, hey, like Mark Wahlberg, how the fuck can I offer any value to Mark Wahlberg? You know what I mean? But I'll go up to him and say hello so he knows who I am. And then when I get home, I'll start looking up all the shit that Mark Wahlberg's into. Oh, you own a tequila company. Oh, that's great. Listen, my friend Adi over there owns Proper Whiskey. Maybe you guys could do business together. You get what I'm saying? So I'll always jump on an opportunity every single time. And I might not be able to monetize them all, but all it takes is one.
All right, so let's talk about this. Because there are a lot of people, and I've worked with a lot of people who can't get over the fear of being rejected, right? Of like just walking up to someone, having that interaction. How do you break through that?
So the way I broke through it is just experience, right? I think, what's the worst that could happen? Like, people are so afraid of rejection. It's like, what are you like? It's not like you're going up to a girl in a social setting with like your boys and you're getting rejected. You're calling somebody up on the phone who's a stranger who you're never going to speak to again after that call if they reject you anyway. So what are you so afraid of? You might as well just go balls to the wall. You might as well just be aggressive, be funny, make it, you know what I mean? Like, treat it like a prank call.
What's going on, guys? It's Yahavy St Clair Speaks. You are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show. Thank you for streaming this episode of the St. Clair Speaks Show podcast. Don't forget to visit StclairSpeaks.com and HustleHop.com and stay up to date with St. Clair Speaks Show updates, upcoming guests, live webinar events, and St. Clair Speaks Show Trade Talk. Visit StclairSpeaks.com and HustleHop.com today. It's funny you say that, because I was a fitness coach for 7 years. we were at a point where they had us lead generating, right? So they would give us different methods. We could either do lead generating with calls. We could, set up a table, talk to, gym members on the floor. But me, with my personality, I have too much personality to hide behind the phone. So I want to be in front of people. I'm like this. I'm handing out aminos and pre-workout. I'm over here and I'm over here. And since I was a fitness coach, I built my entire fitness book off pulling people off the floor. That one-on-one, calls is no problem, but I could give you full throttle, right?
Sure.
So once I seen how I used, my sales skills from the streets and how I brought that to corporate, then I looked at it and I went to a professional networking setting where I actually met my mentor, and, he was doing coaching and consulting. And I really looked at the sales thing and the speaking thing and how everything has its snowball effect and overcoming objections. Obviously, when I hit real estate, I met a different mountain, right? So again, I'm dealing with auction properties, pre-foreclosures. So I'm calling and I'm giving you this energy, and people are giving me the complete different energy. No, mother, I'm not selling my house. No. Right? So I'm overcoming this, but like you said, monetize it, right? So I figured, why not record, keep a camera rolling at all times, and I'm showing people all the no's that I encounter, right? Because it's fueling me up more. So I'm with you 100% on, overcoming objections, monetizing, the opportunities, taking advantage of these opportunities. My analogy is simple, Alex. If you're not the hustler, you're the customer. And that's straight up.
Sure. Wow. Profound. Yeah.
You got me fired up, man. I love talking about this, man. I really want to hear more, because I'm at a point where whenever I hear someone like you or anyone really speak highly of sales, and this is one thing I definitely want to talk about, for the last few years, there's this notion that, sales, I don't like salespeople. They're too salesy, right? There's this analogy that we're salesy and we're scumbags and we're bad people, but this is how we make a living, right? So don't try to rain on us, right? So tell us a little bit more about overcoming that negative dark cloud that people try to put over us as salesmen.
I think sales is the single most important skill for entrepreneurs. There's recently a guy Kawasaki, who was just talking on Brad Lee's podcast, and he said, the most important skill that you can have being an entrepreneur is sales. And they said, and he said to his dad, I guess his rich dad was telling him that, and he said to his rich dad, well, I don't want to do sales. And then his rich dad said, do you like girls? And he said, yeah. He goes, well, then you better start learning sales.
It's the same, because it falls in line with speaking. It all
Everything
falls in line with speaking. It does. And it's something that I've learned as of recently, right? So, my mom always says a good listener is a good speaker, but even with this podcast, I'm obviously going to share this now, but
she's right about that.
Yeah. So as I'm, interviewing you in this podcast, I'm paying attention to everything that you're saying. And I'm like, okay, so he mentioned Gary V here, he talked about this. So I find different talking points to latch onto, right? Same with sales. So if you're talking about, you and your buddy have a tequila company, well, I'll probably mention something. Well, I just gave up drinking, but I'm in the business of drinking, right? So I do skits too. I throw a little personality, throw a little fun stuff in there. So it's that active listening too, from their sales perspective, that I've learned, where I've found some huge success, and consistently talking to people like you. It's really inspiring to hear a real raw success story from sales.
Yeah. And a lot of people, when they get into sales or they try and get better at sales, I feel that, they buy into these courses that are like, oh, listen, this is the like Jordan Belfort system, the straight line persuasion system and all that stuff. And I just get like so it's hard to make a sales system out of something that's really not tangible. Like you can't see sales. Like it's an invisible thing, right? So it's really tough to make a system. And when you try and systemize sales, well, the most important factor of sales is just being able to have a fluid conversation and a casual conversation. And a lot of the things that you talk about are free flowing, right? So when you try and systemize sales, what you do is you end up sounding robotic, right? You end up sounding insincere. You end up sounding ingenuine. And it's because you're trying to focus on like all these things you learn, like the 5 pillars of success and what to say when this and this. And in my opinion, people are systemizing the wrong part of sales. People are trying to systemize the phone part of sales, but what they really need to do is systemize the pre part of sales. Meaning, when I do sales for my people, and the reason I'm able to close so many mortgage brokers is because what we do is we precondition them before the call. So before the call, that broker has already seen multiple testimonials. He's already seen a 1-minute explainer video of how our system works, right? We try and sell them before we even speak to them, right? And what that does is it shortens the sales cycle. I have to explain much less about the system itself. And really, it's just a Q&A to answer any questions or concerns that they have. So what a lot of people don't realize is, especially when running your own business, this isn't necessarily for people who are working in a call center. But if you're running your own business and you're trying to make sales, what you're going to do is you're going to want to precondition those leads when they come in, and shorten that sales cycle for yourself to make that sale much easier. It's working smarter, not harder.
Like really filtering, definitely filtering
and filtering the serious buyers.
Right. No, yeah, definitely separating cold, warm, hot. We waste a lot of time, but there is a lot of time being wasted when you really don't spend that specific. It could take something as small as an hour to really look at your leads, right? Whatever you're looking at for your business model, look at those leads and really ask yourself, is this cold, warm, hot? Filtering them out and creating a consistent follow-up system. Again, this is stuff that I recently learned with real estate. I was running a mile a minute, right? What's more important, direction or speed? That's one of the first things I've learned, right? And moving a mile a minute wasn't getting me anywhere, right? So I had to really slow down. I got a whiteboard and I just started connecting the dots. And I'm like, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense, right? 5 points of contact. You understand that the money is in a follow-up. So if I'm not establishing any follow-up, no business is being established. So it's accountability, but there's also emotions into, doing what we do as far as the sales and interacting with people. Because for me, I think about the objections before the objections arise, right? So if there's a saying, if there's no mountains, don't create it. But of course, there is going to be some friction, right? There's going to be resistance that we experience when you're talking to that, that broker or that homeowner, whatever the case may be, preparing for that objection. How do you go about that and, still finding ways to provide value?
That's a great question. So what we do is we prepare for those objections before, like that thing that I talked about pre-marketing. When we're marketing to these people, we are literally so you typically have 5 or 7 objections that you normally get. We literally put the answers to those objections in our ads, right? So we try and knock off as many objections as possible before they speak to us, right? And over time, you're going to essentially just come up with answers for these, right? Over time, you're going to hear pretty much, the same types of objections. So, really, really easy ways to kind of overcome that based off of, a lot of people. And what a lot of people don't know is, listen, you can get a $100,000 education on YouTube. You want to learn how to overturn objections? Go look at Dan Locke. Go look at Brad Lee. Just follow them on Instagram, and they will literally show you exact situations that, they've thought of everything. They've been doing sales so long, and they have people who are writing in saying, how do I overcome this objection? How do I overcome this objection? And they'll tell you how to overcome, a bunch of them. But really, what I do when I'm trying to overcome an objection, the first thing that I ask when I hear an objection is, that's your concern. If I can solve that concern for you, would you be open to doing business with us today? No. Well, then there must be another concern that you have. What is that? They tell me that. Okay, so your concern is that it's too much money. If I could solve that problem for you and get the price lowered by 30%,
you're addressing.
Would you be willing to do business with us today?
Yeah.
Right. So the first thing you do is just repeat their problem back to them. Ask them, if I can solve that problem for you, Is that the only thing holding you back? Right? And you get that confirmation, then you figure out just how to solve the problem.
It's powerful. It's a very powerful thing. Looking at, obviously, the objections, active listening to, what they're saying, and addressing the pain points. I think that's, my mentor hit me with this line. He said, Yahavy, you have to realize, you have to ask yourself, is your business a vitamin or painkiller? Right? So I'd ask myself that, am I really solving problems here? Right? Where is the supply and demand in what I'm trying to do in my niche? If I am talking to a personal training client, do they want to do personal training because they want to lose weight? Or, do they want to do this because they're getting prepared for something else? Or they don't want to do this because of financial or because they don't have the time. Yeah. In some cases, it's not financial whatsoever. It's not about the money. In some cases, it's time, right? So like you said, we're addressing pain points. We're asking the right questions. Okay, if that's your concern, here's the solution. And if they, continue with more issues, right? So we're going to address these as, they go.
Yeah. And when I prep my phone calls, I'm always asking questions, right? And a lot of people get scared to do that because they think that the person on the other end of the line is going to be like, why the hell are you asking me so many questions? Like, just tell me what the program is. Tell me what you're selling me, and you have to be disciplined in that. What I do to stop that from happening and stop people from getting pissed off is I just set the proper expectations. I'll say, hey, listen, over the course of this call, I'm going to ask you a few questions to discuss if we might be a good fit. If we are, and it all makes great sense on both ends, I'll invite you to come partner with us. If we figure out it's not a good fit, I'll let you know, because the last thing that I want is an unhappy client, right? And then, of course, you can do the same for me. If you feel that if you feel that this isn't a good fit for you, it's okay to tap out and let me know. And what that does is it gets them locked in. Okay, I know this guy is going to ask me a ton of questions. The call is much more patient. They have much more patience for that when you let them know in advance that you are going to be asking a ton of questions. And the other reason you do that is because you want to be in a position of power, which is a consultative position. You're the consultant. The reason you're asking questions is because a doctor does not give a prescription before diagnosis. That's malpractice, right? And I'll even say that to people. Hey, listen, a doctor doesn't give a prescription before diagnosis because that's malpractice. Same thing here. I can't help you until you answer these questions for me, right? And really it changes the dynamic of the phone call, and you're in a position of power. You set the proper expectations, and then when you do tell them, hey, it looks like everything's good on my end, then they're like, oh shit, I'm good enough.
That's how it goes, man. What they say in sales, whoever tells the best story wins. That's one of the things that I've learned right away. And there's a little bit more science behind it, but working in real estate, one of the rookie mistakes I made right away, and I love talking about my mistakes. I made an offer on a property without all of the decision makers physically being there. And it threw me through a loop, right? But the lesson was the real investment. So now I know, right? So I'm coming out of personal training for 7 years. Now I'm going right back into sales. So it's like I'm learning as these mistakes and these lessons go on, and I'm listening to everything that you're saying today, and I'm like, wow, like all of you have really good talking points, about just sales and improving, and obviously getting to this level of success where you're able to potentially sell a company and scale this much and do what you're doing with digital marketing. I think that's very special, especially during this pandemic right now. We don't know if we're going back to normal. Maybe this is normal for right now. But as far as business and digital marketing and what you're doing right now in brand and business, how can mortgage brokers or anyone in business benefit from, your services during this pandemic?
Well, what I tell people all the time is this. When I speak to a mortgage broker, I'm like, who's the best broker in your office? Who is he? What's his name? What's her name? Okay. You will beat the best broker in your office. And the reason I say that is because you are going to have a competitive advantage over them. You're going to have a better lead flow system you're essentially going to have 5 junior loan officers working under you, making calls on your behalf. So you're going to be much more efficient in your job. A lot of our brokers double their volume per month. We have some that have a 500% ROI. And it's because we've implemented systems into their business in order to make them more efficient. And I do that in everything. I automate everything. The way I'm able to scale this company, I scaled it to 30K per month. I've hired 4 people. And I truly, truly believe with confidence and conviction that we will be at 100K per month by December, just based off of the way we've been scaling, the new opportunities that we have. We got to 30K a month with just LinkedIn and LinkedIn and Instagram outreach. And now we're incorporating email marketing, Facebook ads, Facebook organic, all these different things in order to get more sales. Obviously, I'm making more of a name for myself. We're able to leverage that as well. What a lot of people don't know is your brand is your business and your business is your brand, and you are part of that brand. So when I'm, for example, like the reason I'm speaking on this podcast, right, is because, we want to speak to people who are interested in what we are interested in. And we want to be pushing content out there, out the wazoo, right? We want a bunch of content to be out there so that when somebody Googles me, they know what to come up. It's the ultimate trump card. When I tell people Google me on a call, normally they'll call me back after the call and they'll sign up. Building your personal brand, the same rules apply to building your personal brand as fundamental marketing. When you want somebody to buy from you, they have to know who you are and they have to trust you, right? So how do you get people to do that? How do you get social proof? For example, if you see an ad online and it has 0 likes, 0 shares, no engagement on it, you're probably less likely to click on that ad. If you see another ad with 1,000 likes, ton of comments, people talking about the product, then all of a sudden you have more trust and credibility, right? You trust that person way more. Oh, everybody's doing this. I need to do it too, right? Because there's different types of people. There's first movers, which I think are guys like you and myself, people who don't need that influence, who go out and move first. And then there's the second movers, the people who follow them. And then the third people, the really skeptical people who wait to see if anybody got screwed over first, right? So we're very cognizant of that. So, we establish social proof by running engagement campaigns, and then this is what a lot of people don't know. Like for you, if you're running a podcast, what I would be doing with your podcast is I would be running engagement campaigns. The reason I'd be running engagement campaigns is because, one, you're going to get as many eyes as possible on your show. You're going to establish social proof, which means you're going to have likes, comments, shares by running an engagement campaign. It's much different than running an ad. The objective of running an engagement campaign is just to get engagement on the post. But what that does also at the same time is it builds you a modern day mailing list. All of the people who interact and engage with your post are then retargetable. So anybody who's shown an interest, meaning they liked your post, they commented on it, you can then retarget those people with a course or whatever you're going to, or more podcast episodes, right? So running engagement campaigns is something that a lot of people don't do. They don't know to do it. They do direct response marketing and they disrespect the sales process that way. They don't warm up their audience before they try and sell them something. So the way a good analogy, and I got this from Jeremy Haynes, is it's very, very much like if you just run an ad to an audience, like a Facebook ad, it's the same thing as you going to the mall. Those annoying people in those little desks that come up to you and like, hey, try these oils. Hey, you don't know me. I've never met you, but listen to my pitch for a minute so that you could eventually buy this from me. It never works. You're always like, get out of my face. Or you try and avoid them, right? So, excuse me. So it's the same thing in digital marketing. It's the same thing. If you just try and throw an ad out there and try and sell them and they don't know who you are, they're not going to buy from you. So what you do is you run an engagement campaign, you get your activity up on your posts, and then you simply run your ad to all those people who engaged with your post because you know that they already know who you are, which means they're more likely to trust you, which means they're more likely to buy from you.
I'm going to use that snippet right there, and boom, that's it. Like, that's it. Because you know what? As you're talking about that, I'm like, oh, wow. I didn't even think about that. I didn't think of that. I'm thinking basic, click per minute, basic Google ads. I'm thinking, but I didn't think about it in that light. And this is what I'm learning too, right? So we're talking digital marketing, right? We're talking sales. Obviously, the podcast is still new to me. So there's just so many different ideas, and like that one's like kind of like, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you got to think of it this way too.
Yeah.
I go to a guy. His name's Dr. George Pratt. He's in La Jolla, whatever you call it, California. And if you YouTube him, what you'll find is videos of Rob Dyrdek. Rob Dyrdek from Fantasy Factory, Ridiculousness. You know the show Ridiculousness? Yeah. So Rob Dyrdek is the host of that show. Rob Dyrdek gives all his success to Dr. George Pratt. Dr. George Pratt kind of hypnotized him for success. What he told me, so your conscious fires about I think it's 40 neurons per second. Your conscious mind, right? Your conscious mind is solely dedicated to the shit that you don't understand. Your subconscious mind fires 40 million neurons per second, right? So think about that. Your subconscious mind fires 40 million neurons per second. Your conscious mind fires 40. So your conscious mind is solely dedicated to the shit that you can't figure out. So when I'm marketing, I am not going after your conscious mind. I'm going after your subconscious mind because I'm trying to anchor data, right? So when I talk to somebody, right? And for example, for you, I'm sending you all this stuff. I'm on a podcast. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to establish authority, right? When you look at somebody, you don't think, all right, is this guy an alpha or a beta? You instantly know right away, right? That's something that you just know, right? It's not something that you think about, right? So when we talk, when we're running ads, we try and go after the subconscious mind. How do we do that? By establishing authority, by getting social proof, getting these people to trust us, by seeing a bunch of other people engaging with our stuff. We're going after the subconscious mind because we are trying to anchor data.
That is fucking powerful. That is, it's just so true because I read, what was it? By Dr. Joseph Murphy, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. I read that a couple months ago. And, he talks about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And you're talking about, the conscious mind focuses on this and the subconscious is moving this fast. And it's so, as crazy as, it might sound crazy to some, but it's so true. And this comes down to speaking, sales, your conscious mind, your subconscious mind. Your mind is consistently playing tricks on you that you really have to pay attention to mentally what's going on. And, obviously, internally, it's going to result into externally in what you're doing into the world. So mindset is huge. Mm-hmm. Mindset is huge. And, you brought up another point, right away, you mentioned alpha or beta. I spot right away, right? So right off the bat, I already knew what I was getting, right? I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's the alpha for sure.
It's something that you don't think about, right?
Yeah, you don't think about it at all. You don't think about it at all, but it's so true. And you see, and I'm sure you've seen this, you've experienced this, right? Where you were interactive with someone else on the other end that's alpha as well from the sales perspective.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, when that's why, right, you're trying to precondition people through the subconscious mind, right? Not necessarily the subconscious mind. You want to go after people, or not necessarily go after people, but you want to go after people a certain way where you are establishing, psychologically, you want to establish biases, right? We're trying to establish biases. So how do we establish biases? Well, for example, how do I make myself look like an authority, right? Because people trust authorities. They go to authorities. It's an easy way to get business. How do I make myself look like an authority? Well, if my next public speaking gig and there's 25 people sitting there looking right at me, I'm going to record that. I'm going to record that and leverage that content and push that content out there because that makes me perceived as an authority. You are trying to establish biases and precondition your buyer before you even try and sell to them.
let's jump back for a little bit. I want to kind of talk about digital marketing. I think that obviously the digital marketing right now, the ban is huge because obviously everything's moving through technology. We're still quarantined in. You know, a lot of people are, some are still trying to figure out how to work remotely, right?
Sure.
With these small businesses, right? There's small businesses, solo entrepreneurs. How can they, establish some type of dominance and alpha on social media, right? We mentioned LinkedIn, right? Not many people are familiar with LinkedIn and the business that can be created. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, listen, this is super easy. I know a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs. There's two types of people. There's people who want to be out there. There's entrepreneurs and then there's wantrepreneurs, right? The entrepreneurs are the people who are willing to invest in themselves. A lot of people, they think every course that you buy is a scam, right? Every course, I look at courses that are being advertised and I see in the comments, scam, scam, scam. Oh, this is a scam. Don't buy this, buy this. I literally look at those people and I'm like, you're fucking pathetic. You're pathetic. You have a poverty mindset and you're literally never going to make any money. Good luck. So here's what a lot of people don't understand. When you can do something called authority hijacking, and it's perfectly reasonable for you to do this. If you buy a course from somebody, you are then able to say that you learned directly from that person and leverage that, right? So if I take Grant Cardone's 10X course, Grant Cardone, anybody ask me, yeah, I learned this from Grant Cardone. He's a mentor of mine. And you're perfectly within your reason to say that because you paid good money to say that. And a lot of people don't understand that. So they'll take a course and be like, well, how am I starting? Nobody knows who I am. How do I get people to trust me? It's like, dude, you took the course. Don't say, hey, I took a course. Say, hey, I learned from Grant Cardone because you did.
No, it's straight up. You learn this information. I always say, what good is information if you don't apply it, right? So, if you're taking a course and you learn from Grant Cardone, apply that information, right? You learn from Alex, right? Apply that information. So with all the information that you talked about, so many different talking points today, for me personally, I'm more fired up closing this interview now. Because bro, I breed sales, right? So just to really just have this conversation about objections, cold calls, what got you to the point. I watch a lot of Gary V content. So Gary V says this a lot. So he wants to know what got someone to the point before they became who they were. Like Drake, he talks about Drake a lot. He wants to know what made Drake Drake. So I wanted to know what got you to this point. And you mentioned, you had it good all the way to the point of 16, and you felt this passion, right? You felt this fire, and you still got it till this day, and you're just going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people have different reasons. I think mine, unfortunately, came from a place of pain. It misguided, though. Like now that I look at it, and I'm looking back at it, I think. And when I refocus and look at, my 32 years on this earth, I spent a lot of my teens, early 20s being mad at the world. And I think where it changed for me is when I stopped blaming other people for my shit and started blaming myself. That's when I really started to change from that. That's a poverty mentality. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I said, holy shit. I've just been upset for fucking 10 years without trying to solve anything. How is this anybody else's fault but mine? So, that's where I think it came from. But I also am very thankful and grateful for that experience in my life, because if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be where I am today. If my dad was rich, who knows, man? I partied a lot in college. In fact, just recently, listen, I threw a party 10 years ago, okay, at Arizona State University. It was on World's Dumbest Brawlers. It was all over the news. It was on True TV, World's Most Shocking Videos, and they just reposted it on Barstool 10 years later. And I look back at that and I'm like, holy shit, man. I was still an entrepreneur then, but I was just focused on throwing amazing parties, you know?
So entrepreneurship in a nutshell is, it's consistent evolution, right? We're constantly evolving. We see
100%.
business and opportunities evolve. Um, Again, with my background, your background, our upbringing is a little different. How we started was different, but the passion, the drive, the spark for just sales and helping people and living in alignment, right? I could tell you're extremely passionate about what you do, right? I've encountered people, I've had conversations with people who do things because of the check that's attached to it, right? Or the title that's attached to it. I could tell we could do this for like hours, right? Because
Sure.
you're that passionate about what you do. You're real about what you do. And I could see, I read people very well, right? So, when you're talking about this, like, I feel you, man. Like, it's real. It's raw. And I think that's the most powerful thing too. One of the biggest takeaways that I'm taking away from, obviously interviewing you today is when you're passionate about what you do, it shows in your work. And
Sure.
I think that speaks volume to, what you've done these past few years. And I'm excited to, have this opportunity to interview you, because now I could always go back and look at this interview. I'm like, oh, wow, like he really said that. Okay. Go back and like write these notes and obviously have that
hit me
connection.
up, dude.
Yeah, that too. But it's good to have, like you said, this connection and, connecting the dots, right?
Absolutely.
But for everyone else, listening into this episode of the St. Clair Speak Show podcast, another way to, create opportunity is to act on opportunity, right? Alex talked about this in, this interview. You want to see opportunity and opportunity. Don't be shy. Don't talk yourself out of opportunity. You guys won't know, Alex, you don't know how many times anxiety and fear has talked me out of my best ideas. Well, what I thought was at times.
Yeah, and that's common, right? Because what a lot of people do is listen, what they need to, I think once they understand this, they'll be able to take advantage of more opportunities. Your opportunities that come up in your life will almost never align with your ability to fulfill those opportunities. It's never, ever the right timing, ever. That is why I understand that. That's why I say yes to everything and then figure it out later.
That's my mindset right now, because no one expect 2020 to be like this, right?
No.
We came into this year. I'm on a social media detox right now for a reason, but just this year has just been crazy. Everything's all over the place, and emotionally, as human beings, which happens, we get emotionally distracted and we take our mind off business, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a solo entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, you got to own your business, right? There's a time and place, right? We understand using your emotional intelligence, but do not put fear and anxiety in your work. It's going to show. You could lose business partners for this, right?
Yep.
So, definitely whatever you're doing, make sure that you're passionate about it and really ask yourself if you're living in your alignment. Now, Alex, I want to give you the opportunity to, give us some closing thoughts.
Yeah. Closing thoughts. I would say, along your journey, I think that the one, and this is going to sound so cliche, but it's so true, man. The one consistency with successful entrepreneurs, the same thing that they have is consistent persistence. Okay. I've had so many failures in my journey, failed companies, failed ideas, bad partners, just everything you could possibly imagine. But I was consistent in my persistence. I was, a lot of people have shiny object syndrome, where, they'll have one business idea, they'll start it, not finish it, go to the next, right? Focus on one thing until you hit 50K per month. Focus on one thing and then venture out into all those other ideas you have. You need money to do that, right? And then you also need to understand that failure is just milestones. That's all that is. It's milestones along the way. So when you fail, you're just one step closer. It's a milestone, and it's also a learning opportunity, right? You need rhino skin. It's going to help you get tougher, but you're also going to learn those opportunities and be able to apply them to your next project or whatever you have. The other piece of advice I could give you, get yourself a supportive girlfriend who believes in you. You know, behind every successful man is a smart woman, and I'm dead serious. I'm 100% serious. I would not be able to be where I am without my girlfriend, who I've had for years. But it's important to have that support system, people who you can talk to, because it's a emotional journey, right? It's an emotional journey, and there's highs and there's lows, and you get sad, right? That whole thing with Tacotopia didn't work out. I cried. So, having a good support system in place, even if it's, your mom, you need somebody that you can talk to about these things, somebody who could keep you in check, but also recognize the fact that they're not doing what you're doing. So they're not always going to be right. So you can kind of pick and choose the advice that you listen to. You'll know the right advice to listen to, and you'll know the wrong one to take advice from. So that's what I'd say.
Very, very, very powerful closing thoughts, Alex. Thank you. Definitely to recap on that, guys. Pretty much never take criticism from someone you wouldn't run to for advice, as well as, entrepreneurship does get lonely. Everyone needs an emotional support system. That's extremely important. My girl is going to love this one, because it's so true. It's so true. I wouldn't be where I'm at right now without her. We met on the streets of Times Square when I was selling comedy tickets.
Really?
Yeah, like 6-7 years ago. And now we got a daughter, got the whole family, got the cat.
That's awesome.
Right? So it's like,
and that stuff's important, man. Listen, that stuff is important. In fact, when I got fired from my job, I was a sales director at a startup. I came home and it was humiliating. It was embarrassing. I almost didn't want to tell her. And, I remember I just locked myself in the bathroom for hours, and I was just fucking bawling my eyes out, like crying. And then I finally told her, and she was the one who said, "Alex, do you want to help your family?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Do you think that you could help your family with a 9-to-5 job?" I said, "Probably not." She goes, "Do you think that you will be happy in a 9-to-5 job?" I said, "No." She goes, "The reason that you have anxiety and the reason that you are stressed is because you are not doing anything about that anxiety. You are not working towards your goals to get rid of that anxiety. You want to take care of your family, and you're going to be unhappy working for somebody else. You need to start your own business like you've always wanted to." And I fucking did.
Hell yeah, Alex. Hell yeah. But it's like, look, in life, I believe you have two options: suffer or succeed. You made your choice, right?
Yep.
And there's going to be moments in life where we're going to constantly get the same choice over and over: suffer or succeed, right? You're on a new level now. Suffer or succeed. Oh, I'm going to suffer. What? Why would you do that? Right? But some people are so comfortable self-sabotaging themselves because they are intimidated by their own greatness, right?
Yeah.
So don't emotionally run from anything. Definitely run towards it head on. This was an incredible episode of the St. Clair Speak Show podcast. Again, guys, like, share, and subscribe to the St. Clair Speak Show podcast. Until next time.